If you're ready to hit the track in the iRacing Ford FR500S Mustang, then sign up for the Barber Ford Mustang Club today. With great prizes from our awesome sponsors, this league is fast, fun, and best of all, free to race in. Take on 6 races of wheel-to-wheel action, all broadcasted live on Pit Stop TV. As a member, you will receive a $500 voucher to Barber Ford, plus entry into a raffle for a brand new Fanatec H-pattern shifter. Every point you earn on the track is 1 entry into the raffle, meaning you can race your way into a brand new Fanatec shifter drawn on December 15th. Battle your competitors at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta, Barber Motorsports Park, Brands Hatch, and for the finale, Lime Rock Park. Join the Barber Ford Mustang Club at League ID 3350 today.
With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker, the future is feeling.
The World Center of Racing is not only an annual stop in February for NASCAR and its National Series, but it's also an integral part of making it to the playoffs. Now, it is the playoff cutoff race to go into the playoffs of the NASCAR Cup Series, becoming that much more important in NASCAR's summer stretch to set the field to race for a championship. Last night, we watched the stars of the NASCAR Cup Series take to the high banks of Daytona, Florida. Now it's up to the Shake and Bake Racing Buttkicker Cup Series at the World Center of Racing. Welcome to Pit Stop TV and the virtual Daytona International Speedway. Alongside me is Caleb Hoffman. My name is Andrew Cardinale IV, and we are in for one heck of a night of racing. 85 laps on the docket for us, under the sun and eventually under the lights this evening at Daytona International Speedway. Thanks for joining us here at Pit Stop TV. As always, let's take a look at our not race details just yet, our track map coming into this evening. And Caleb, it's always a good time when you can start a broadcast by looking at Daytona International Speedway. This place is so freaking cool. And I feel like we say that every time we come here. It's Daytona. It's fun. It's going to be an exciting night of racing. There will be no dull moments.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, you know, here with the Cup car at Daytona, always a very fun combo. And, you know, coming into tonight, it's going to be hard to anticipate really with where it is on the schedule if this is going to be, you know, one of your prototypical three-wide type of nights at Daytona, or if we're going to see a little more apprehension as guys are trying to think about pointing their way into the playoffs potentially.
I'm glad you mentioned the playoffs. Let's get right down to it. The point situation coming into this evening, it's mostly decided, much like the NASCAR Cup Series. 14 drivers are locked in as opposed to 15 last night in the Cup race. That leaves 2 openings left in the playoffs for the Shake and Bake Racing Buttkicker Cup Series. And one of the drivers trying to get in is the driver who just went to pole, number 02, Richard Elliott, is now his teammate, goes even faster, Joshua Watson. Brian Watson also trying to make it into the playoffs. He's 36 points out and chasing Derek Whitford and Nick Barisi. And actually, I got to double check. Is it Derek or Daryl Whitford? I know it's D. Whitford, and the two confuse me sometimes. Regardless, he's chasing Whitford and Barisi. And there's a couple of interesting notes, because Barisi is not only racing for himself this evening, but also racing for, I got to go back through this, Brandon Sheffield, who sits 10th in the standings, while James South races for Kevin Jadrosich, who is 25th in the standings, and Brandon Mashayevsky races for Alan Wilson III, who is 4th in the standings. It's mostly for team points, but it's an added dynamic now that is on top of Nick Barisi as he tries to point his way into the playoffs or even go out there and get a race win this evening. Extra levels of dynamics, and Caleb, when this is already this important of a race, that's only wearing on the driver that much more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really hard to not have it be the first thing on your mind here, but, you know, once you strap yourself in to these virtual race cars, you know, you got to set all that aside and just go out and race at the end of the day. And it's going to be really important for these guys on the cut line. You mentioned Barisi, Brian Watson, who's on the flip side of it, sitting 17th right now, just 36 points out, probably going to need a win if he wants to be in here tonight. Hart Pence, Richard Elliott, Spencer Clark, all these guys just going to have to go out there and give it their all tonight.
Let's take a look at how we got here, of course, following the NASCAR Cup Series schedule with one substitute race, which was Chicagoland Speedway in for the Chicago Street Course. Otherwise, following the NASCAR schedule, we find ourselves here at race 26 of the season. Next up, Darlington, Kansas, Bristol in round 1. Then Texas, Talladega, the Charlotte Roval in round 2. Las Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville in round 3. And finally, Phoenix Raceway for round 36 to take us to the championship finale of this season. A lot of interesting racing to go, a lot of interesting cut races, much like the NASCAR Cup Series. There we go. We're going to be following these weeks of drama building up as we end 2023. Qualifying ending behind us, meanwhile, as Adrian Watts goes to the 3rd place in qualifying. Let's take a look at our full ticker there on the left side. Adrian Watts there in the 3rd spot. Joshua Watson currently fastest. Here's a look at Kleinschmidt, who crashes at the end of his run. And here's a look at Derek Whitford, currently the top driver on the bubble in the point standings to get into the playoffs. Qualifies pretty nicely, but has some work to do as he qualifies 11th so far.
Yeah, I mean, qualifying for sure going to be important here today, but it's not necessarily going to decide much for you in the grand scheme of things. You definitely want to start up front so you can try to avoid calamity and anything that comes your way here at Daytona. So going to help to qualify up front, but that's not to say that if you start at the back, it's going to be impossible for you here tonight. As you know, the draft's so important here, and can really shake things up as we get through there, as we're on board that 99 machine.
Babcock into turns 1 and 2 just wrapped up lap number 1 for his run, along with James South. Babcock currently the slowest of the bunch, but that's okay on lap 1. If anything, you maybe want to be slower that first lap out, as Wilhite takes a slow run up to his first qualifying lap. This is interesting. He's going rather slow and finally now picking up the throttle down in third gear, waiting a long time to build speed. I wonder if there's some kind of competitive advantage to that we aren't aware of. I can't imagine there would be, but he's doing something for a reason.
And you see right here, I mean, like you said, not sure what exactly the advantage would be there, but it has to be intentional.
Meanwhile, you take a look there at Brad Ward, who has turned a couple of laps, but it looks like will not be taking a full qualifying time this evening. Brandon Maciejewski now to the 18th spot in qualifying. James South goes to 9th. Maciejewski with one more lap to go. Let's ride on board with car 93 as he wraps up his qualifying run. This is inside the helmet. I love this view in these cars. It doesn't pitch like the gyro. Instead, it actually pitches up and down a little bit, so it kind of follows the movement of the driver's head just a little bit and gives you a really cool view inside at what the drivers are seeing. Big roll bars off there to the right as they come around, and Maciejewski will wrap up lap number 2 for his run, going much quicker that second time around, and that will move him up the board to 11th. Not so bad.
And it really shows you the limited visibility inside of these cars and why it can be so easy to find yourself involved in big wrecks here at these tracks like Daytona, Talladega. But it also stresses the importance of our virtual spotters who are atop the box tonight. Going to be helping out a lot of these guys because, with that low visibility, it's going to be hard to react or judge to everything happening around you, as this is Chris Wilhite.
Wilhite coming into the tri-oval to wrap up lap number 2. Of course, he had that slow run up to his first lap. Second lap is a 49.3. He must know something. That's pole. I am shocked.
And I mean, my only thought there is maybe thinking that second lap is at peak temperature or something of that sort. Didn't want to get that motor too hot, maybe.
It must be something with tire pressures as well. I mean, I'm honestly floored. For the longest time, the mentality has been go out there, run hard at the very top of the racetrack, lap 1, and from the get-go, if anything, you want to go straight to the wall if possible. But now, of course, iRacing restricts drivers to the apron until you exit turn number 2, but then it's straight to the wall. That's how it's been for years, to get as much of a run up with the motor as possible and get that motor spinning as much as possible. That was bizarre. As you take a look at the weather conditions at the top of your screen, picture perfect evening. This is such a cool view. Really, really cool view there. Partly cloudy, 82 degrees on the track, 78.2 in the air. I'm still absolutely floored by that qualifying run from Chris Wilhite. I knew those guys at Ryko, they know things that others don't. I knew there had to be some kind of reason. I'm still shocked as you take a look at the field getting ready to go racing this evening. Once again, thanks for joining us here at Pit Stop TV. Let's take a run through our starting order. On pole this evening, Chris Wilhite, you just saw that surprise lap at the end of qualifying. He goes straight to the top of the board in car number 7, while Joshua Watson will line up from the second spot. These two drivers have gone hand in hand, synonymous with the front row in the Shake and Bake Racing Buttkicker Cup Series. They lead us to the green at Daytona, just ahead of Brian Traeger and Adrian Watts. Meanwhile, starting 5th and 6th, it's Justin Levine and Richard Elliott, now with a green spoiler on that purple Chevrolet. Watch for him to make some noise as he tries to make the playoffs with a win here this evening. Lawrence Shaughnessy in the 9 car will start from 7th. Timothy Babcock from the 8th position. And finally, to wrap up your top 10, Brian Watson and James South, cars 04 and 14 in row number 5.
And then looking through here, you're going to see Luke Duran in that number 5 machine. He's starting alongside Brandon Majewski, who we talked about. Not on the grid yet is that number 59 machine of Matthew Kleinschmidt, and starting alongside him going to be Austin Derbyshire. Both of them looking to have good runs tonight. Derek Whitford starting from the 15th position, and alongside him, Spencer Clark, one of those bubble drivers to keep your eye on tonight. Andrew Griesbaum in 17th in that number 78 machine, and David Shively to his outside, starting 18th here tonight. Then Darrell Whitford, somebody else who's trying to win his way into the playoffs tonight, starting from the 19th position. And then Brad Ward to round out your top 20.
Brad Ward, Daytona winner back in February, starting deep in the field, just ahead of Nick Barisi and Jason Jackson on the back row of starters this evening. 22 strong as they roll out onto the high banks of Daytona International Speedway, all chasing cars number 7 and 01. How fitting that is for the course of this season. They've got the most wins. They come into tonight as your top seeds in the playoffs. Watson with the edge over Will Height, but these two drivers have been the talk of the town all season long. The fact that they're leading us to the green this evening spells trouble for everybody else.
Absolutely, and like you said, very representative of what's happened all season long. And Will Height and Watson both going to have, really strong runs here tonight. Just going to have to try to get the one up over each other, and then even still, somebody can poke their head out and take the lead from them here early on at Daytona. Just the nature of this track.
While these guys take their last few moments to virtually strap in and get ready to go racing, let's take a look at this evening's Whiplash SimCam's race details. It's an 85-lap race, 45-lap first stage with no stage break. That means we're racing just past halfway to complete stage number 1, then running 40 laps to the end with a 29 to 30 lap fuel window that's going to spice things up a little bit with 3 chain sets of tires in the pits. 3 change sets, plenty of tires in the pit lane for these drivers, 78% fuel in total, up to 3 green-white checkers. We're going to go racing this time by the Daytona International Speedway, I do believe, and set these boys free as they look to finalize their playoff field. Coming into the tri-oval to get things going this evening, green flag going to fly for Chris Wilhite and Joshua Watson out front of the Shake and Bake Racing Buttkicker field. We're green at Daytona.
Had a little bit of a checkup on the outside, and now the inside really starting to get stacked up here. Those first 4 cars got almost glued together, but a really even start nonetheless. And looking around the field right now, watching to see if anybody's going to be aggressive enough here early on to poke it 3 wide.
Down the Daytona super stretch for the first time into turn number 3. Will Hyatt losing steam on the inside. Traeger down there helping. The top, it's all Watson, Watts, and Elliott. Babcock, the first non-organizational car out there for those drivers. Lap 1 quickly going to go complete, and Joshua Watson out front of them all.
And Watson and Watts really using that outside lane's momentum where they, just have that motor spooled up a few additional RPM, and that's, even still about a 2-3 mile per hour advantage. It's going to come back to haunt him here in the corners with Chris Wilhite leading this inside lane, but on that straightaway, that's really where that outside lane is going to just propel itself forward.
There you can see the visual difference in speed as they exit turn 2 and exit turn 4. That said, that bottom line gets pushing pretty nicely. They back up on corner exit, but they quickly get back going. At least these particular drivers in line on the bottom side as you're right on board with Warren Shaughnessy here on lap number 2. Right now, a lot of great energy down low, and that was a big point of struggle for drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series last night, running this exact same car with this exact same roll set. Wow, what a catch! The 6 of Traeger on the inside. A teammate got bumped up. That's the the 08 of Adrian Watts getting passed up by his teammate Richard Elliott, who I think is trying to let him in, and this is causing havoc in the middle of the field as they head down the backstretch.
Yeah, now I think that's going to result in this number 12 machine, or this is the 02, excuse me, Richard Elliott going to be left out to dry, and a really close call there that really got this pack separated. But it looks like we're going to be okay.
Will Height, that was a big jump right in front of Adrian Watts. Hardly clear was the 7 car as he jumped in line at the top side. That was scary in the middle of 3 and 4, but they get in line. with now Shaughnessy and Wilhite in line up top, following Watson in the 0-1, who moves around a little bit. Here comes Shaughnessy to the inside, going to bring his teammate Wilhite.
And both of these guys trying to utilize that slingshot to propel themselves forward. Watson, though, and Watts getting back together and separated for a moment, but this 08 and the 01 have been working together quite well. Big move there. Shaughnessy already trying to block, and really aggressive moves here for only lap 4 of 85.
Very aggressive on the 4th lap of racing. When we saw it again, well, we saw it first of all last lap, lap 3. A couple of big moves, a couple of cars getting sorted out in ways they didn't want to be. We're seeing that continue as these guys wrap up lap number 4. Watts now back to his teammate Watson, but the 0-2 of Elliott, 3-4 cars back from where he was earlier in the, hardly in the top 10, but he is just in the 10th position. Now the top line gaining some steam, the bottom side falling back ever so slightly as Wilhite leads Levine over the 6 of Traeger. The 0-4 of Watson is down there. He's teammate again with the 0-1, 0-8, and 0-2 cars, so he's the single driver down there from that organization on the inside lane. JBR E-Racing trying to find themselves here.
Absolutely looking right now on board. This is with that 04, Brian Watson, and he's that 4th car down on the inside right now, and all that shuffling, and it's Wilhite once again who's leading this inside lane. Watson up on the outside who's pushing Shaughnessy right now, and the big problem for this outside lane was they just couldn't get together, and a little bit of back and forth there. Close call again with Watson and Shaughnessy, but if they can continue to work together like they have been, it's going to be smooth sailing for this outside line.
Levine, a big shove to Wilhite, gets him out front. Meanwhile, the 0-1 on the back end of the 9 car. That's scary. Nearly turned Shaughnessy around in front of the entire field. Levine now jumps up to the top side. Lap 6. There's action everywhere here at Daytona. Big shove from the 9 car to the 33. Levine gets going, but not enough into turn 3 rather, to have the race lead over Wilhite. Wilhite powers ahead through the corner with help from Traeger in the 6 car. Now he's going to jump up top. Wilhite controlling this race.
Yeah, and there are a lot of guys right now in the middle of the corner who are just bobbing and weaving back and forth, and it's pushing really hard. And if you're able to keep that car stable, then you're able to just push, pretty much wherever. You want to avoid doing it in the corners usually, but it is possible. But if you're bobbing and weaving and back and forth, it is not going to be tangible whatsoever. It's not going to be possible for you to do, and it can really come back to bite you.
Lots of energy in this entire field. There are only a couple of cars who have fallen back from this field. Shively and Whitford in the very back have dropped back as Levine drops down in front of Watson, who brought Watts along with him. So moves being made. JBR E-Racing trying to go to the front. They do so once again. You can tell who wants to work with who already.
Absolutely, and with that surge of momentum, Levine and Watson got themselves a fine lead. Here comes Elliott, and he had a big run, decided to get off the throttle there and just stick in line behind Watts, but it looks like this inside lane grouped up together is going to be able to get around Chris Wilhite's group with ease.
So now 2nd, 3rd, and 4th are all on one team. That's JBR E-Racing, and just like that, they move up the racetrack. Watson and Watts leaving Elliott. I don't know what's going on for Richard Elliott. I don't know if he's being apprehensive here, Caleb, but he has been very, very lax on the throttle this evening. He keeps lifting in spots where I feel like he could go up there and race for himself. I think he knows what's at stake. I think he knows the situation for sure. Just knows he has to get to the end of this race and try to win it. Does not want to get torn up early. He's being very, very cautious behind the wheel.
Absolutely. It's that classic wisdom of you can't win this race on lap 9, but you can certainly lose it. And just a conservative style of driving, and it's I think more resonant with me right now. I like what he's doing, rather than getting in close calls, almost wrecks, trying to dodge and weave up at the front right now.
Elliott working in tandem there with the 33 of Levine. Now big moves up front. Here comes Wilhite to the inside, bringing teammates along with. That's going to be checks notes. High side Motorsports going to the low side. That's a little bit odd from Wilhite and Shaughnessy, but they take over the race lead. Wilhite now back to the point at Daytona. Lap 9 complete. And boy, how this race continues to unfold and just get more and more dramatic. Here comes Mashievsky racing this evening for Brandon Sheffield's points, at least for that team. That's important. Sheffield has carried that banner for guys like Ed Kane and others. This is a big time points advantage for them if Maciejewski actually goes out and races like this all night long. He's been out front, at least towards the front since the drop of the green, and now mixing it up in the third place as Elliott takes a chance here. Goes up top in front of his JBR E-Racing teammates and is going to lead that top line.
And looking around right now, you're going to see this entire group going to slide up in front of Richard Elliott. And one part of this race that we haven't mentioned so far tonight is how important that side draft is going to be, but it's almost been neutralized to an effect because you're seeing a lot of guys that are sliding around this racetrack at the moment, and it's really making it difficult to utilize it whatsoever because it could result in you turning another car rather than getting the benefits from it.
Down the backstretch, a whole lot of cars up top, and you're right, side draft not exactly a big deal. When you get 7 cars single file, 8 cars single file back through Watts in the 8th spot, this has been very much negated throughout the course of this event so far, as now Griesbaum gets in line, makes it 9 cars single file. Going to bring Barisi now in the 10th spot in the 66 car up and make it single file, and then you get some teammates back there with Barisi, Ward, and Jackson all racing under that same banner. You can see their like paint schemes. But these drivers up front, they will not stay like this. They might get like this for a little while, but there's differing teams, and sure enough, there goes Watson, brings Elliott, Watson, and Watts back down to the inside. So, whoa! Elliott just about hooks the 04. They're going to crash. It looks like maybe they hang on to it. What a catch.
I don't know how they did. Richard Elliott, I mean, he was making contact with Majeski to his outside, and Watts right here.
Maciejewski's ticked. He is all over the 02, or was all over the 02 down the backstretch. He's not thrilled, it looks like. I mean, he was hugging Elliott's door into turn 3, which, if you're mad at somebody for maybe making a move that got a little bit aggressive, I don't know how getting closer to them is going to help. But hey, these drivers have their own agendas, and they're, sure enough, the 93 straight to the door of the 02. I'm confused.
Yeah, and you can't take risks like that here when you're going almost 200 miles per hour. This is going to be a big checkup down on the inside. Watson almost gets turned from Richard Elliott, and we talked about how apprehensive he was being with the throttle. Not anymore, looks like.
Elliott has been all over Watson the last 2 laps. I don't know what's going on right now for the 04. He pulls a ton in the corner when they get linked up like that, but drops anchor on the straightaways. Now has a chance to go for the race lead. Can Watson get it here? No, he drops anchor again on the short shoot to the tri-oval. The 7 car leads another lap. Keep watching this. I don't know what's going on between these 2 leaders on the bottom side. They're teammates. The entire top 4 on the bottom are teammates. But something goes wrong at a turn 2 every lap. Let's see if it goes better this time around, as nearly all 4 of them get clear to the race lead.
And good work there on the inside lane. Going to be up to Will Height and Shaughnessy working together now to see if they can try to get their momentum back up. And it looks like through the middle of the corner they do get a little bit of a run. But right now you just can't be taking risks, and you have to put yourself in a position where you're going to be smooth sailing, and it's not been that for a majority of this pack up front so far.
Elliott now down onto the apron, looking like maybe he was going to give up some spots, but he stays in line with his teammates. He's the one that this race really hangs on, honestly. Watson and Elliott could both really use the win to get in. Elliott could just do it on points. But if Elliott wins this race, Watson's out no matter what. Even if he points his way in. Wow! Shaughnessy hooked the 7 car for a moment. These guys pushing on quarter exit, I think, should calm down a little bit. It's getting scary every single lap.
And I mean, it's been really curious so far as to why the aggression levels have been so high. It's making it fun up here for us, but for these drivers, it's got to be torture right now. I mean, we still got almost 30 laps until our stage in.
A long time to go. And you know what? For these drivers that don't like this level of aggression, the pit window just opened up to pit here and make it to the end of stage 1 without taking any extra stops. The problem with that strategy is it would put them on the short side for making it to the end of the race. It's a 40-lap run to the end. These guys can run about 29 to 30 on fuel. So the window's open for stage 1 if you think we're going to get a yellow to even things back out in stage 2, but I don't know that we're going to see anybody pit just yet.
No, I don't think so either, because another element of it is you have to have help. You have to have people who are going to come down with you, because if not, you're just going to be a sitting duck out there for this pack to eat you up and engulf you.
Yeah, it would take a conceded effort from guys like JBR E-Racing or Highside Motorsport, as there was another bobble there from the 04 car of Watson getting a shove from the 02 of Elliott. They continue to push the daylights out of one another as the sun sets here at Daytona, but it's getting scarier and scarier as the lights fast approach. Weather conditions changing a little bit in this race. Track temps coming down ever so slightly, a degree or two since qualifying. That's going to continue to drop, and this track should get a little more, hopefully, grippy is maybe the word. Shouldn't be quite as treacherous for these guys, but right now, there is definitely something in the air. These guys are all over the place. Contact there for the lead!
And now Watson's going to have to get out of the throttle. Shaughnessy and Wilhite, I think, are going to benefit the most from that, as Majewski as well to the back end of Shaughnessy. They did a good job. I mean, this pack has been trying to wreck every lap for the past 15, it feels like, and they have just avoided it somehow up here at the front.
Watson now sitting back with his teammates on the bottom side. Elliott bobbles at a turn 2. Watts still leading the inside. Wilhite still leading the top side. Shaughnessy and Majewski shove the 7 car back to the race lead. Doran nearly clear, and he is clear now. They could drop down to the bottom if they want to, but now that bottom side pulls back up and makes that 5 car have to deal with a car to the inside for the first time again. Meanwhile, the tandem out front of Wilhite and Shaughnessy, they are linked up and driving away. How long can Shaughnessy push like that, though?
Yeah, not for long, and Shaughnessy's now going to get to the back, or the front bumper, excuse me, of Majewski here. Luke Duran right here, Brad Ford. Here comes that surge on the inside of Watson, Elliott. Will they have a run now coming off turn 2?
On board of Shaughnessy, taking a look back. You can see Watson there in the 04 as a shove comes from Majewski. Another shove comes from Majewski. Shove, shove, shoved in the backstretch now. Shaughnessy to the 7 car of Wilhite. The pit window to make this a 2-stop race will open up in about 6 more laps. Does anybody pit early?
Pay attention to for sure, and even so, I mean, we're gonna get stops before the end of this stage. The question is, when does this group come in? And gotta be careful when you're packed up like this and coming down pit lane, because it is very easy to run into other guys or run over each other.
Top line falls apart. Wilhite now in the middle, falling back with Shaughnessy there. I don't know what just happened to these guys in turns 1 and 2, but Wilhite, Shaughnessy, Majewski absolutely drop anchor. That puts Watson, Elliott, and Watts out front and brings along the 86 of Jackson, the 92 of Clark. Here comes Wilhite again.
And he has help from Shaughnessy behind still in this top lane, trying to get group back up. Majewski actually going to tag the wall. Duran's going to have to get out of the throttle, and that's going to break him up once again. Going to leave this inside lane at a big advantage going into 1.
You see Majewski alongside Timothy Babcock. Pulling up, getting close once again to the 7 and 9 car. I don't know what's going on for these guys, but all the choreography has gone out the window very suddenly. The top side looking a little bit weak, actually looking very, very weak. Down the back stretch, really struggling to get formed up as Watson gets way clear of Elliott, and the top side suddenly has a resurgence once again into turn 3. Big shoves from Shaughnessy. They're clearing the bottom mid-corner. Wow, what a shove through the corner.
Oh, and the inside lane gonna have to check up as well. A bad push to Adrian Watts from Joshua Watson has gotten them now all out of sorts, and really this entire front pack has become super disorganized at this point.
Everybody's on their own kind of agenda right now as Shaughnessy dips to the inside of his own teammate. There we go! Big hook! Elliott finally turned Watson. Big crash out of turn number 2. Kleinschmidt, Doran, Watson, Levine, and so many more down the backstretch.
And that's what happens at Daytona. We've been seeing that brewing for about the past 20 or so laps, with just a bunch of aggressive moves and pushing through the corner, and that is eventually what's going to happen to you. There is Richard Elliott.
The biggest part of all of this is that included 2 drivers on the same team that both need to win this race. if they want to make the playoffs. And I mean, this is disaster scenario for JBR E-Racing. Just like last night in the Coke 0400, it's a purple car pushing a teammate that causes the big one at Daytona, this time out of turn number 2. Elliott just got to the back end of the 04 of Watson, kind of slam drafted him a little bit mid-corner, and it was a little bit just off-center enough, Caleb, that it sent that 04 car around.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that 04, he tags the apron, and then once those bumpers get misaligned, you'll see it right here. Tags the apron right there, pushes him back up the track once he hits that transition. Bumpers get misaligned, and then Elliott pushes right there, gets that 04 turned around. And it's a really tough break for guys like Luke Duran right there, who just gets
Luke
tagged.
was almost past
nothing
it.
He can do. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do in that scenario.
Wow.
And everybody else did a great job of avoiding it.
Babcock was very lucky to keep on going by that. You see Duran spinning around, Kleinschmidt, grease bomb, Spencer Clark. That's a big hit to the side of the 5 car. And Watson, letting it roll, comes back down and catches the 33 car who was trying to get by. That was Justin Levine. A couple of late hits for some of those drivers. And you're right, Watson definitely caught the apron, but I think that car got unsettled from the initial contact. We can actually take a look on board. Let's see here. Did that initial hit get Watson loose? Watch the hands all the way through this whole situation. He's checking up a little bit, gets tagged onto the apron, gets tagged again. Nothing he could have done.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's why you'll see a lot at these plate tracks. A lot of guys run, in years past, would have run higher steering ratios, but that's just one of these numerous changes with the next-gen Cup car is not the same. And they're going to react differently to pushes like that. And just one of the cases there, you see push 1, and then push 2 gets it turned all the way around.
Really big hits for a couple of these cars. There goes Watson. He comes down the racetrack, catches the 33 car, who does a spin through the infield. And, man, that's unfortunate for a couple of these guys who were doing nothing wrong and just ended up in this at the wrong time.
A lot of these guys should be running the lowest steering opinion that you're able to run in these cars, which would be about a 1.57, something like that, which is going to be a very, very responsive, very twitchy type of response from these cars. You see on board there with the 33.
Another car stood out to me. It was Spencer Clark. Haven't seen him in a couple of races, or at least the last couple that we covered between Michigan and Atlanta. But here's Clark in this crash, going to get into the 5 car of Luke Duran mid-spin. A lot of pit stops taking place under this caution. James South, the lone driver to stay out, and Clark just about avoided it all, and then gets caught up there, T-boning the 5 car, and stays towards the rear of this field. A lot of damage dealt to this field as a whole, as now we have a pit stop from James South, who I think stayed out to try and get that team a lap led, which is important for Kevin Jadrosich in the 64 car, who was not here this evening, but James South is racing for. So South comes into the box and will take service. Looks like fuel only for the 14 car, but he's not alone in this stop. Here comes Traeger, Levine in as well, grease bomb in the pit lane, even in the 78 car.
And a lot of these guys, this caution really going to shake up a bunch in terms of the pit cycle here, and gives everybody a new fresh start to get to not only the end of the stage, but should set them up nicely to make this just a simple 2-stop strategy race.
The iRacing.com pace car lights being shut off this lap means they're going racing, this time at a turn number 4. That'll give way to the green flag with just 60 laps remaining this evening at Daytona International Speedway. Why is that important? That is just on the edge of the fuel window to make it on 1 stop. So if these drivers have their druthers about them, they've got to be max fuel save under this caution, and they might just keep themselves in that window. If we get another caution that only guarantees they can make it on 1 stop to the end, but This is an important yellow at an important time. This is right when that fuel window was going to open it up to make it a two-stop race. Now these guys have their one stop in the pit lane. This is going to be close.
And again, this caution, I think, takes out a little bit of, shall we call it, the interpretation, perhaps, of it's going to take out any variation that we're going to see from this. I think it should be a pretty cut and dried type of strategy from this point on, but might see a few surprises with this second stop, perhaps, with the end of the stage. No caution for that, and we're coming up to the end of it.
I think if you're running hard, you run hard through the end of this stage, then pit for a quick stop, get back out there and try to stay on the lead lap in case of a caution, and then try to play the end of the race. Either way, green flag back out at Daytona International Speedway, down to turn number 1. A big move from Will Height up in front of his teammate Shaughnessy.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot easier said than done in terms of that pit strategy, and it's going to be, because of a lot of pushing around like this, going to be hard to get out of line. Because you see everybody grouped up together once again, and look at this outside lane. Will Height, Shaughnessy, Adrian Watts, big push for those three, and even further back, another big push from Barrice.
Barrice up top, that was a big shove from the 99 card. He checks up as a result. Everybody kind of moving around on this first lap. Tires coming back into temperature. 3 wide in the back with Levine and Kleinschmidt in the middle. Meanwhile, here comes Mashievsky into the tri-oval to wrap up our first lap from the restart. Side by side for the race lead, they go into turn number 1. Will Height up top, Mashievsky down low. Watson pushing the 93. That's an interesting spot for that 01 car to be. No teammates around him to help out. Same for the 08 on the top side. That is Adrian Watts. Nobody around to help him out.
And right now, Majewski with Watson just glued to that back bumper right now. And look at the outside lane. Watts with another big shove going into turn number 3 to this outside lane.
Through the middle of the corner, side by side, they stay for the race lead. All 22 cars in this pack, all the way back through Brian Watson. Nobody has dropped out of the race just yet, despite all of that crash damage last time through. And again, I'm going to bring up that whole fuel conversation. If these guys think they're short, I think they should run hard. It's going to be hard to save fuel in a place like Daytona, very wide open. You can do it, you can save fuel, but is it going to be enough? That's hard to say, especially with a couple of caution laps leading up to this. If they think they're short, I think run hard. Run clear of the stage. Put yourself in position to get points, and then come in for a short stop and play the rest of the race out. That should keep you on the lead lap. If you do it as a team, that should give you the opening to stay on the lead lap of the race. If you catch a caution, that way you're not marooned 1 lap down, and play it much more safely to the end of this race with just 40 laps in stage 2. However, if these guys are in the back, they can try and throttle back right now, save some fuel, and make this a one-stop race. But then, like you said, that takes all of the element of strategy out of it, I guess at that point, or a variation, I think is a better way to put it, and it makes it a straight-up save for 30, save for 30.
And again, it's going to be interesting here, I think. A lot of these guys a little further back in the pack. Look at Adrian Watts as he makes a big move to get down to the inside lane. But I think if you're one of these guys like maybe a Brad Ward or a Nick Barrice, then I think you're going to be in a good position here to actually save. You know, you're not going to have to use all of that throttle because you're going to be sitting here in line, hopefully.
Big shove from Shaughnessy, going to get the 08 clear. Adrian Watts takes a commanding race lead at Daytona International Speedway. What a shove! Shaughnessy is the best pusher in the field. They have set themselves up nicely over at Highside Motorsports. He is the best pusher here this evening, and I think that is by far. As now Will Height gets to Watson, who gets to Shaughnessy. They're going to link up, and Watson is going to push the 9 car to the race lead. Now drops in front of his teammate Watts and leaves the 9 back to his own teammate in Will Height. Oh, how the team games change.
And that was very dangerous there from Will Height. Can't push the pusher too often. They get away with it there, and Joshua Watson going to propel himself nicely to the lead with help from Watts. Shaughnessy now with help from Will Height. They're going to try to use that momentum on the outside lane to get past this group of Watson and Watts.
I'll tell you what, this has been a fun race. There aren't many Daytona races quite like this one. under the lights, the sun going down in the background. Going to finish this thing, I'm sure, in the dark of night. And these guys are on it. From a lap 1, they did not understand the idea of calm down. It's been go, go, go. Get everything you can. That said, they're doing it without wadding things up every lap, and I will go ahead and hang on. Knock on wood. I don't want to jinx it here, Caleb, but these guys have been racing really, really nicely as here comes the Race 1 winner who did this back in February from Victory Lane, Brad Ward. Put the 87 on top of the series, winning the first race of the season earlier this year. Back towards the front at Daytona, trying to get to the race lead.
Got to be careful with these pushes from Watson in the back end of Ward, but you see all that momentum down in the inside lane now as they're going to...
Whoa!
Ward's almost going to get turned. Watson going to have to leave him. Now Ward's going to go up to the outside. That's going to open the door again for Shaughnessy and Wilhite.
Wilhite barely gets clear, makes it 3 wide to get to the inside of the 87 car. 3 wide, they stay through 3 and 4. I don't think Ward liked any of that. He got kicked out of that party quickly. He moved up out of the way of Watson when Watson got him loose, and then Shaughnessy and Wilhite said, no, that doesn't work with our strategy, and they went right on by the 87 car. Made it 3 wide. Wow, what a lap.
And you're going to see him calm down here for just a second as I think everybody in this lead pack catches their breath, but going to have to get back to it immediately. Adrian Watts here. Joshua Watson once again grouped up down on the inside, going to have to try to work together with each other. Got to be careful, though, as they're still bobbing and weaving all over the place right now.
3 wide again.
Misaligned.
Barisi in the middle of the field, right in front of Richard Elliott. They get it sorted out in the car there briefly of the 02 car of Richard Elliott, now watching from atop the roof of this Chevrolet Camaro. This is back here a little ways. He's running in 10th. Again, a driver that desperately needs a win, trying to beat the driver directly in front of him, Nick Barisi, to make it into the playoffs this evening. Derek Whitford is in as well. That's the 44 car, but he's much more safe to the cut line. It's really a matter of the 66, the 02, and the 04 as far as making it into that last spot.
And this inside lane really lost a lot of energy there. Babcock now going to drop down to the inside. Big push from Watson there. And you got to be careful with those big shoves because when you're in a group together like this, it's really easy to get a stack-up, check-up effect throughout the field. And it's kind of what we've been seeing at the tail end of this pack a lot of times.
Elliott right around the 190s through the corner, drafting with these drivers. Wilhite a little bit off center there to Shaughnessy, pushing out front as lap 34 is complete, 11 to go in stage number 1. How do these drivers play this stage? Here's a big move to the inside. Watson looks on Babcock on the apron. Here comes Levine and Kleinschmidt in the middle, 3 wide, back here racing for about 10th, 11th and so. That was a big moment in turn 1. There goes Elliott to the inside.
And that's, again, has really impeded the momentum of this inside lane. Babcock does not want to be in that position. And now Richard Elliott going to be in a tough spot as well. His entire pack going to have to lift big time. And now
Watson got the wall. That was Brian Watson in the fence in turn 3, and that scared everybody.
Absolutely. You see right here in the middle now is James South. As they're going to have to get regrouped here any moment now. Try to work with each other again to get back up towards the front.
JBR E-Racing now in line once again on the inside, but they are sans one driver. It's Elliott, Watson, and Watts down low. They're missing Brian Watts in the 04 car, who's up on the top side. I mentioned last lap he got the wall in turn 3. Now he's getting clear of his teammates on the inside and has an option down low if he wants it. Luke Doran directly in front from Highside Motorsports, who's racing this evening with Wilhite and Shaughnessy. And now there's Levine on the inside, who pulls back up. The inside of Watson, then Doran, then Barisi in the 66, and suddenly the 04 is trapped once again. But all of these scraped, beaten, battered, and bruised cars racing up front are starting to get a little bit hairy.
And gotta wonder when they're gonna calm down here. Again, getting close to the end of this stage in the, we're in the final 10 laps of it now, and it's got to be go time if you want to accrue some of those stage points. It's going to be your last chance for the regular season to do so.
Yeah, there's really no calming down for these guys, I don't think, at least not until the checkered flag waves. Kleinschmidt now a little bit offset. He looks to the inside, makes it 3 wide briefly. He's going to bring one car. That's going to be James South looking down low with him in the 21. And now 3 wide as South drops way down low, opens up a hole for Kleinschmidt to get in the line. Now Sheffield makes it 3 wide again. Hops one car, gets ahead of Watson, just narrowly clearing the 04.
Yeah, and on the inside line now, for a brief second, looks like that 39 machine leading that inside lane, blinking a little bit, and it's making it really difficult for this inside lane to make up any sort of ground. And now he's going to pull out a line here, and a good move there from the 59, because that is holding up everybody here on this inside lane.
Yeah, Kleinschmidt was blinking a ton there. That time through 1 and 2 got out of the way. Love that. Here comes the 64 car of Austin Derbyshire. And Kleinschmidt still blinking. That's a problem, but he gets it under control, it seems. Now Trayer drops down to the inside, passes the 08 of Watts, and pulls up to the 01 of Watson. Richard Elliott has fallen back as well. Looks like JBR Racing not at all focusing here on stage number 1, at least not like Highside Motorsports, who's been leading this race since the drop, well, the redrop of the green flag, I should say. Shaughnessy out front, Will Height second, crashing in the back, Spencer Clark in trouble. No caution, but the 92 spins and comes to a near halt and then pulls back away.
And the second incident for that 92 machine, he was involved in that wreck the first time, and this is a very interesting one. I think it might have been mystery contact from that 59 who we talked about was blinking here. Just watch this.
Oh, that's a ton of net code. Wow. Yeah. That's the trouble with having a poor internet connection in the middle of the field at 190 miles an hour. Spencer Clark having to bite the bullet here. This is one more look. This is really unfortunate for the 92 car.
And you see it right here. Just, I mean, almost the entire width of the corner there in terms of net code. And
wow, and Griesbaum, big hit. Darrell Whitford hit him pretty hard. That is so unfortunate, and that looks like the right front is towed out on the 92 car. Griesbaum out of this race as well. That takes us down to 20 cars with just 5 laps to go in stage number 1. Time is ticking. We're back side by side out front as James South pulls to the inside and brings along the 33 of Levine. Teammates working well down low, now bringing the fight to Shaughnessy and Will Height up top.
And Shaughnessy doing a great job with Will Height, but this inside lane has gotten formed back together. James South, Justin Levine working it well together here now. Not going to be any match right here towards the entry of 3, but you'll see they're going to get that momentum back mid-corner. Slowly but surely getting there.
Beautiful teamwork all night long from Shaughnessy and Will Height, but how long will it last? As these guys start to build bigger and better runs, I think at least somebody's going to get ahead of those two drivers and move them back here for these stage points. But it's hard to say. They have been so good up there, and they do control the better line right now. I think the top side clearly proving that it's just a little bit stronger. We'll see how long that lasts. That time was 4 to go in stage 1. Remember, there is no stage break. But I think as soon as this stage completes, we could see a few drivers pit that have been burning fuel, such as the race leaders, honestly. Shaughnessy and Will Height, I think I expect them in just about as soon as this stage ends. They did not pit that last lap of caution. They're already at a disadvantage, and they've been running hard here in the remainder of stage 1, Caleb. I think they're going to have to pit again, extra time.
And it's entirely possible right now. James South and Levine lost all that ground that they had made up, and now that's going to open the door for Majewski and Luke Duran down on the inside. Hopefully they can lead a surge now to get this group side by side.
Luke Duran, a shove there from Majewski down the Daytona super stretch. Darrell Whitford fell off the pace, now leaving 19 cars in the lead pack, really 18 and a half as Kleinschmidt continues to have connection issues. And now the grid vision machines of South and Derbyshire and Levine all get lined up on the top side, leaving some others on the inside. Parisi getting clear of the bottom briefly. Brian Watson going with him. This is interesting. Brian Watson is kind of solo from his teammates right now. Looks like he's on his own little strategy, and it's working well. Except now he's trapped up top as the guys down on the inside. His teammates actually get a big run with 2 to go on the stage.
Yeah, and Watson and Watts once again trying to work together here. They're going to need help from behind, and Derek Whitford, Richard Elliott, and they're going to have to move quickly, as you said. Now coming to the white flag in this stage. Going to be difficult to make up this amount of ground, but is possible still. Here comes Brian Watson on the inside as they come out of 4.
Watson finally down in front of his teammates. This could be a big run here on lap 45 to try and win the stage. Elliott down onto the apron briefly along with the 93 of Mashayevsky. And Brian Watson trying to win his way into the playoffs. This would be a huge opportunity. He's also racing the 66 for points. It's a 36-point difference between them coming into this evening. You see them side by side down the backstretch now at Daytona. How can that JBR Esports team help the 04 get some big-time points here in Stage 1? They've got to commit to the back end of that Chevrolet, and they have got to push and push and push here through 3 and 4. One last chance to get Brian Watson a stage win. Brad Ward gets loose. Here's the run to the flag, or at least not the flag, but the end of the stage. Watson's going to pull on through. Nearly grabs a stage win. He'll take 9 points.
A great surge there from Brian Watson and Joshua Watson, and both of them did a fantastic job, just short of getting to Lawrence Shaughnessy here. But now the question, I guess, shifts to what do you do about fuel strategy here?
Again, I think if you've been running hard out front, like Wilhite and Shaughnessy, you pit here soon. It's now 40 laps to the end of the race. These guys can go about 29 or 30, maybe 31 if they're really diligent about fuel strat. Maybe you don't pit this lap, but I think you have to pit soon. If you pit soon, you can take less fuel on the stop, get back out there quicker. And if you take just a little bit of fuel to get back out there, I don't know, it just might keep you on that lead lap and keep you in a spot where you can really benefit from a caution, try to stay out maybe or whatever. I don't know. I think these guys running hard out front. I highly doubt that Shaughnessy and Wilhite have really saved that much.
And I mean, looking around right now, it's been about 22, 23 laps since they last pit. I think the max you can push it is about another 6 to 7 laps. And if we don't get a caution in that time frame, then, like you said, our window is going to be blown wide open here in the next 5 or so laps for everybody to come back down.
We'll also learn a lot on this run. If these guys can go a little longer than we think, I mean, there's a possibility they could hit maybe 32. I doubt they go much further, but here we go. Oh, I thought we were going to have some pitters. They just got 3 wide at the back of the field. The field now down to about, we'll say, 14 cars. Babcock the last in line. Mashayevsky's fallen back along with Jackson, Traeger, and Elliott. And this is exactly what you can't have of your Richard Elliott right now. It's fine to not get stage points because he needs to win, but you cannot be this far back. You've got to put yourself out front at this point in the race.
Absolutely. You know, you just don't have the time, I think, once we get on the flip side of pit stops to really make up a lot of this ground. If you are in the position like Richard Elliott, you see Traeger back here as well.
On board with Richard Elliott currently, and those cars way ahead are the race leaders. I mean, this is a large gap you've got to make up to guys that you need to beat. You need to beat every single car in this race. When they go into the corner here, take a look at this. Those are your race leaders somewhere out there. That's a long ways to go.
Absolutely, and I mean, you're going to have to hope for either a caution or a really good cycle in the pit lane. Right now, no such luck at the moment as we're still running side by side, and I think we're going to see a round of green flag pit stops here, knock on wood.
Yeah, I don't think these guys are going to go for that earlier stop. I think they're going to try and run it all the way out, which is also not a bad strategy. I'm surprised. They also might be trying to still stretch maybe an extra lap, an extra half lap, an extra quarter lap to try and make it to the fuel window. They're only 5 laps away. They could do it. I mean, they're right on the edge from the get-go. They just might be able to do it. It was a little bit of rough math. I went off of 78% since it's 78% fuel, 78% of 38. And really, you can go 39 or 40, which is that extra lap or so of discretion. They could have just enough.
And it's going to be close for sure, like you said. And if we get any overtimes, then it's going to throw a few wrenches into strategy as well. But as of right now, I mean, you're just about 5 laps shy. And it just works out perfectly to where this window, you're pushing right about 4 to 5 laps. I think these guys are going to be in a good position if they wait just another 3 or 4 laps to potentially be able to make it to the end.
I'm surprised that Shaughnessy and Will Hite can do it. They've just been so full throttle out front. They were really the only ones I was that concerned about. It wasn't going to take much lifting to, I think, get that extra little bit. You don't use much fuel under caution if you simply play nicely, if you shut the car off a little bit, do your due diligence. But we'll see. There's still a chance these guys could pit. I mean, you see some drivers, JBR Esports is really sinking back now, kind of in their own little world, maybe getting ready for pit lane. They've got to do it here in about 5 more laps. They've got to get to lap 54 at the very least. I mean, they're only a couple away, and that fits just on the edge of the window.
And it's just been complete dominance, it feels like, from Shaughnessy and Will Hite. Both of them have been, when together, almost unstoppable up here at the front. And that's going to continue. If they can stay right here, I think they're going to be in the best position long term, because not only are they going to have this track position advantage, but they're going to be able to have an organized pit sequence here soon.
This is scary. A couple of lap cars on the top of the racetrack. Daryl Whitford is one of them. Spencer Clark is the other. Leaders hit the bottom side of the track now as Whitford and Clark stay high. It was scary briefly because Whitford didn't really want to go to the top side, it seemed like, with Clark, and was kind of moving around a little bit. But they get it sorted out, and they hit the top of the wall, or hit the top of the racetrack up by the wall. And now let Doran and South go through. Whitford gets the fence. I think Clark might have got a scrape as well. Whitford staying in the fence. He's really checking up.
And that's a tough break for a car that was already fighting to stay on the lead lap. And now I think he's just going to have to fall all the way to the tail end of this pack now with some additional aero damage.
Brian Watson, a solid run there in stage 1. Finished second in the stage. Took home 9 points. I don't think he made that many up, though, on... trying to think, on Nick Barisi. I think, if anything, it's maybe a 31-point gap now between them. I think he has to win this race.
Absolutely. Oh, big checkup a little further towards the back. Luke Duran, James South really had to get out of the throttle. It was just a checkup effect from Derek Whitford on back, and you see this group. What this tells me, everybody down on the inside together, is that we are pitting, and we are pitting soon.
I said, I think 54 is the cutoff lap for these guys. Maybe you can get to 55. It's going to be close. So 54, 55, this is where these guys are on the edge of the pit window. Can they pit this time? Will they pit this time? No. No takers just yet.
And this is where we get into that odd territory where it's just a little bit of a buffer zone in terms of who's saved and who hasn't right now, pushing this stint 31 laps since everybody, the leaders especially, have come down pit lane. And like you said, it's going to be a stretch and a gamble to try to make it to 32. But I think right now you're seeing the long in play from everybody trying to make it to the end of this race. But I would expect everybody to pit this time by, though.
I'm impressed that Shaughnessy and Will Hite have it. They were full throttle the rest of that stage. I didn't think they were saving anything. Will they pit this time? No, but others behind them will. Brian Watson comes in along with Joshua Watson. There we go. Almost said Jason Watson. So the Watsons pit along with Watts. And Elliott's going to have to stay out and completely miss his teammates in their strategy.
Interesting to pit earlier than the leaders here. But it is something that can work out. Like you said, you're going to want to push this as much as you can so you can fill up less. Not only a shorter pit stop, but less fuel in the car so you can theoretically go faster. But sounds like over the comms that we should see the rest of our leaders come in this time by.
And that was not a full set of tires for those drivers. It was 2 tires and fuel to get back out there. Here comes Will Hyde and everybody else. Levine, a big move on the inside. Justin Levine really sending it, trying to get everything he can. Big gains there for the 33 car, trying to get in quickly. Barisi just sneaks behind him into his own box. Traeger and Elliott stay out. Shaughnessy and Will Hyde come in. Will Hyde. Well, actually, that was Shaughnessy right to his box. Will Hyde to his box. Solid pit entries from everybody.
And everybody did a great job there of not taking themselves
Kleinschmidt, I think, was no tires. He got out quick.
And it's an interesting call for sure, because now you're not going to have as much drafting help. Everybody wants to be on the same page here as you see these 3 cars all coming off together. That's Levine, Ward, and Will Hyde. Ward really with Levine, excuse me, with a fantastic cycle there.
Here come the rest, and this will be a much smaller group. This is just going to be Brian Traeger and Richard Elliott coming into the pit lane. Watch Richard Elliott here. Of course, he has got to be absolutely perfect. His pit strategy is pretty much decided along with Brian Traeger. It's going to be 2 in fuel, I think, for these guys as well. I'd love to know the tire wear for these drivers. I would really like to know just how worn the tires are that they're actually taking 2. I'm surprised by that. I think that you might be a little better off just taking no tires.
Yeah, and really close call here. Joshua Watson, Adrian Watts, this group that just came off the pit lane last time by, trying to get past Majewski and Barisi. Majewski went up to block, and yeah, it was similar to that as these guys coming with a full head of steam, trying to make up time to get back to Shaughnessy here, 4th car in line. Just really close call, but it looks like they're going to all be grouped up together, and it's going to be the rest of this pack trying to chase down these 4 on screen right now. And Justin Levine, Brad Ward, Chris Wilhite, and Lawrence Shaughnessy.
Brian Traeger great in the pit lane, almost came out along with Barisi, Mashayevsky, and those guys. A quick pit stop for the 6 car, but he's going to fall in behind others. And falling behind Doran, Babcock, Whitford, while Elliott is going to be on his own. I mean, this is absolute worst case right now for the 02 car. He was just a hair slow on pit exit. You saw, we were watching that pit stop actually live, and it looked like he, I don't know if he stalled the car. I don't think he stalled the car, but he was maybe in the wrong gear when he went to launch. You saw the wheel just kind of check quickly into gear. It seemed like maybe he was in the wrong gear at first. He is way back of anybody that he needs to be with. I mean, 3 seconds up to Traeger. This is Richard Elliott's season on the line. I think he might be out of it.
Yeah, and they still have time to make up the rest of this thing. He should be about 25 laps to go at this point, but I think you're right. It's going to be a tough battle here for Richard Elliott and the rest of this thing.
Now, these guys leading, I understand they want to race. I understand they want to position themselves for the end. But if you're Brad Ward, Chris Wilhite, Lawrence Shaughnessy, Justin Levine, you've got to save that for the last 2 laps. You cannot afford to be side by side right now. You have such a gift this being this far ahead of Watson, Mashayevsky, all those guys of that second group. You have got to stay single file and be as disciplined as ever to simply run as fast as possible these next 23 laps to get to the end of this race. You have a gift, use it. You're 3 seconds ahead of Watson and the rest of those guys. Do not get side by side like they just were.
Yeah, and last time by, for reference, it was about a second faster for this group of Watson and Watts back trying to catch him. That time by just ran a 46.2 compared to the Watson's 46.4. So running together in this single file pack, paying dividends. Do not get side by side, as you were saying, or else this pack will just eat you up and eat you alive.
Yeah, you've got 3 teammates in line leading this second group. They're absolutely going to stay lined up, linked up, and push. The rest of these cars, I mean, you can't promise that Mashayevsky, Barisi, and Shively will stay nice. You would certainly hope so, since it's their race on the line as well. But if you're Ward, Wilhite, Shaughnessy, Levine, you cannot be passing people right now. You cannot be trying to race each other. You just need to get to the end of this thing without a caution, without losing time, as they now put it back over the 3-second marker. Sure, that's nice, but you can't get too ballsy here. You have to stay in this line. If anything, if you keep gaining time, cool, maybe you could race with 3 laps to go, but you still have to be careful.
And Watson right now, he's over the radio trying to coach the rest of this group, saying, hey, if we keep this up, we are catching them, and we need to keep this up and just try to make up as much ground as possible at this point. Time ticking down, and again, a lot of these guys in this second pack trying not to watch their playoff hopes go up in smoke.
Meanwhile, there's this bit of this group, actually Babcock in his own little group now, along with Whitford, Doran, Traeger, Kleinschmidt, and Derbyshire. Then Elliott's on his own along, well, he finally picked up Jason Jackson. They're running a little bit faster. They'll at least stay on the lead lap. Or at least should. James South is on his own. Looks like he had a long stop, potentially. Maybe some issues getting into the box. He runs 29 seconds behind our race leaders as there they go down the backstretch. And these lead 4 continue now to walk away from that second group. They got in line. They're doing what they need to do now. That was, well, it's working out.
Yeah, and I mean, like you were saying earlier, Shaughnessy and Wilhite really are 2 of the best pushers in this field. That at the end of that straightaway there, they were almost at 201 miles per hour, and this pack behind him was about 3 miles per hour slower. And it is, you know, in paying off in dividends right now. Last time by for this front 4, 45.7 compared to this pack behind him. Even with the numbers advantage, we're about 4/10 slower, and you see Watson now, I guess, trying to cycle himself out.
Maybe trying to keep the 08 car cool. He nearly hooks his teammate on the backstretch. I mean, wow. That was really scary and really, really scary for these guys. I mean, you're trying to complete that switch. I don't know how you almost hooked your teammate, but glad they didn't crash. That was very close.
And not only that, but they just lost a bunch of time down the backstretch. I don't know if that was really the best spot to be switching, where, you know, it's all about that drafting prowess. And that really set this group back a ton.
It really did. 5.3 seconds now. This is a big, big problem for these drivers. You can take the onboard here, and the gap ahead, bottom right, 5 seconds nearly to Justin Levine, and it continues to grow. 4.8. Coming down a little bit on the backstretch, but it's going to go right back up.
And again, I think it just comes down to this front 4 group being more disciplined and staying together. Just, I mean, plainly better than this group is back here. And Barisi even is not really in line right now to the best of his ability. So they are losing time, and I think at this point you might need a caution to get back to them.
We say all that, but now Watts is actually gaining on Levine. Like something, you know what? Maybe Watts is better at leading. Maybe they have different setups on those cars, and I mean, they should all be from Ryko. I would think they'd be just about the same, if not for sure the same, but maybe Watts is a bit faster leading. Maybe that's why they made that switch, as now Masiewski pulls the outside of Brian Watson. I don't understand this. You've got to stay disciplined. You can't be racing right now. Oh, and he's going to hook him! What are we doing? Oh! That's a season done for Brian Watson. No caution yet. Debris on the racetrack. I don't think we're going to get one. Wow.
And if you're this front 4 right now, I mean, that is absolute best case scenario from you. You'll see what happens here.
I already didn't understand Masiewski being on the outside. He comes down, tries to side draft the 04. Watson might have come up a little bit. That was just, I mean, to be honest with you, just the most unnecessary thing for that group to have happen right there. I mean, you're trying to catch back up for the race win. You can't get side by side in the first place, and you certainly can't crash a guy. I mean, I'm not trying to say Masiewski did that intentionally at all. I doubt it was intentional. But there has to be a level of racing awareness in your situation to not let this happen. This also impacts Barisi. I mean, really important points here for all of these guys. You got Masiewski subbing for Sheffield. You've got Barisi trying to stay above the cut line, which I think he will. Certainly with Watson out of this race now. The only way Barisi is out is if, well, if somebody else wins a race.
And really tough break, but again, this is, if you're this front four group of Brad Ward, Will Height, Lawrence Shaughnessy, Justin Levine, this is exactly what you wanted to see, because now not only do you have this advantage, but you have the numbers advantage as well, and Levine has drifted off from this pack to give James South a push now.
Picks up his teammate.
Has dwindled this lead group now down to 3.
And then there's this group. This is the largest group on the racetrack right now. This could be where the best racing ends up happening for the race end. You've got Babcock, Whitford, Doran, Traeger. I mean, I don't know how these guys ended up linked up, but this is important for these drivers. Watson now out of the race. He ends up 20th. Daryl Whitford stays in this race. He is now in the 19th spot. James South may have just lost connection. He is now out of the race, and that stings that much more for Justin Levine. He dropped himself from the fight for the win to save a teammate that's now out of the race.
Yeah, and it was almost instantaneously. He gave that bump to James South. James South disappeared off the racetrack, and then...
Could it have been a DQ?
Not sure. It does say he manually disconnected, though. That is a good thought, that he might have been over his incident limit there with that contact. Not exactly sure, though.
It's certainly an interesting race unfolding before us. A lot of bizarre storylines. Lap 70 currently of 85, and I think these last 15 are only going to get that much more interesting as Traeger now's on the outside of Doran and Kleinschmidt. Again, these are drivers racing that need to be single file. They're only 3 seconds behind Watson and Watts. They could absolutely drive up for 5th and 6th, but they have to be disciplined. Racing like this is only slowing you down. 15 to go.
Again, that numbers advantage not going to mean anything when you're side by side like this, slowing yourself down. And I think it's safe to say if we don't get a caution, it's going to be a 3-horse race for the win here between Shaughnessy, Will Height, and Brad Ward.
Levine now being caught by the 08 and 01. You're going to try and link onto the back of that group, I think. That duo. And they are now 11 and a half seconds behind your race leaders, Brad Ward, Chris Wilhite, and Lawrence Shaughnessy. These drivers have about 3 seconds back to the next group, led by Babcock. But there's Brad Ward. Won, not necessarily this race, but this track back in February to kick the season off. The number 87 kicked the season off on top of the world. Would like to end the regular season that way and roll off into the playoffs with a big chip on his shoulder. That'd be nice. That's always nice to roll into the playoffs with some momentum. That said, he's got to try and beat 2 teammates. And at a draft track like this, I don't know that the numbers are really in his favor.
Oh, and caution on the racetrack.
Wow.
It's that group that we were watching Luke Duran's around. Derbyshire was in it.
This changes everything. And suddenly, it's no longer a 3-horse race. Those guys that were racing kept racing. They were catching the group ahead of Watson. But then this happens. Down the backstretch, Mashayevsky to the inside. Hooks the 6 car of Brian Traeger. And the rest is history. 2 really big hits. Mashayevsky gets more damage for measure. The 5 of Doran's involved.
And again, I'm not sure what this pack was doing racing side by side like this when you're trying to make up ground, and then Majewski makes it 3 wide, and I don't know, just a little needlessly, and it results in that wreck right there. It's just, that's what you're trying to avoid when you're running in a pack. And looks like the bug's gonna come and bite them and gives us a reset.
The maybe ironic part of this is it saves the race of everybody they were racing with. They weren't going to win, Caleb, and now the cars that were out of it but are not in this crash are suddenly right back in it with as good a chance as anybody. The drivers who picked up damage, Mashayevsky and others, of course, they're just about out. That's a big hit right there for the 6 and 99. Big hits to the 5 and 64, again for the 93. But everybody who got by, Shively and company, they're in a good spot.
Absolutely. I guess you're right in the sense of if you're not in it, then if you're not in the wreck, then you're going to be in the running for the win here. And you see going 3 wide here at the end of this straightaway, trying to use that momentum. 6, I think, comes down just to block a little bit, and that gets this group together. They hit the wall. You see Duran gets turned here big, and a little secondary contact.
I agree, though. I don't really understand the 3 wide. Simply put, you're taking yourself out of the race, and I don't know that you're gaining anything out of it. But, hey, it is a race after all. They were racing. I give them that much, as we've got 11 laps to go, this time by the flag stand. Here come a bunch of leaders pitting. The top 4 stay out, but Adrian Watts, Joshua Watson, and others come in. I'm curious here. We saw the cold tire work that Will Height did for the pole. Do you think that's going to carry over to the race? Is that going to help Watson on the short run?
And, I mean, going to be interesting here, I think, from Watson. But with this caution, I mean, like we've been saying, it changes everything. Everybody's going to be back in contention now. It's not just going to be that 3-horse race. And not only that, but you're going to have to avoid wrecks here. You're going to have to be very careful about what you do here, because you're going to get a restart with under 10 laps to go, and there's just simply going to be no time to make up any sort of ground if you're involved in a wreck here.
See some drivers in the pit lane. Mashievsky, Babcock, Traeger in the number 6. He's out of his car. Luke Doran in the number 5 out of his car. Really unfortunate situation for a lot of these guys. You see Brian Watson in the pit lane as well there in the foreground. Here comes Clyde Schmidt in the 59 car. While these guys take service and we get closer to going back racing, we're going to go Pit Stop TV side by side and get ready for a short run to the finish. Somewhere to the tune of 8 or 9 laps of green flag racing remain. Don't miss it. We'll be right back here at Pit Stop TV.
If you're ready to hit the track in the iRacing Ford FR500S Mustang, then sign up for the Barber Ford Mustang Club today. With great prizes from our awesome sponsors, this league is fast, fun, and best of all, free to race in. Take on 6 races of wheel-to-wheel action, all broadcasted live on Pit Stop TV. As a member, you will receive a $500 voucher to Barber Ford, plus entry into a raffle for a brand new Fanatec H-pattern shifter. Every point you earn on the track is 1 entry into the raffle, meaning you can race your way into a brand new Fanatec shifter drawn on December 15th. Battle your competitors at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta, Barber Motorsports Park, Brands Hatch, and for the finale, Lime Rock Park. Join the Barber Ford Mustang Club at League ID 3350 today.
Welcome back to the virtual Daytona International Speedway. It's round 26 of 36 for the Shake and Bake Racing Buttkicker Cup Series. Thank you to Buttkicker. Feel what you've been missing for this entire season of racing. Let's get back at it one final time, maybe. Green flag in the regular season. Brad Ward leads us to the green. Shaughnessy straight to his teammate on the outside. Old tires and fuel out front. New tires and fuel behind. Let's go racing once again.
And side by side up at the front, Ward and Watson working together, and Shaughnessy and Wilhite, they've been the story to watch all day long, still working together. Will it result in a race win for him? That remains to be seen as the field flies by off turn number 2 down the backstretch now.
Watts falling back. He got staggered to the 44 car of Derek Whitford. He goes all the way to the rear now. He's in the playoffs. He doesn't care about this race finish. Oh, there we go. A shot from the 33. Got the 01 into the 87. Brad Ward just hangs on. Now Shaughnessy a shot to Watson. We just stay green. 1 lap complete from the restart. Something tells me we've got a caution brewing.
Absolutely, aggressiveness at an all-time high, and intensity's picking up as we are inching ever so slightly closer to the end of this race. Look at Watson and Shaughnessy working together up front now. Brad Ward with help from Levine behind, still side by side as they head off too.
Shoving the daylights out of the 87 is Levine in the 33 car. Absolutely glued to the rear end of that Lordco Ford Mustang into turn number 3, shoving Brad Ward to the race lead while Shaughnessy pushes Watson up top. That's a pairing I didn't think I'd be saying today. But Wilhite falling back, the top line dissolving, inside of 10 to go, and here comes Richard Elliott back into the top 5. He needs a win to advance into the playoffs. He's now 4th.
And here comes this outside group of Watson and Shaughnessy once again. Just not going to have quite the run that they were anticipating there. Maybe they can get a little further off of turn number 2 now. Shively with help from Elliott behind, though. This inside lane has been working together really nicely.
Got to watch this purple 02 in the middle of the field. The playoffs kind of hang on what he does, if he can win here this evening. Otherwise, the field stays as it was coming into this evening. A quick reminder as these guys go on of how the playoff field looks coming into tonight. Watson, Wilhite, Watts, Wilson, Doran, Mashievsky, Levine, Ward, Kleinschmidt, Sheffield, Shaughnessy, Jackson, Traeger, and Kane are all in. Whether it's from wins or points, they're all in the playoffs. However, Derek Whitford is just, well, I think he's about locked in now, as Brian Watson can no longer point his way in. Barisi is not locked in because Brian Watson, well, he can't win the race anymore, but really it comes down to Richard Elliott, Spencer Clark, those guys. Actually, Clark's out of the race. It really comes down to the 0-2 car, let's be honest.
And he's in a less than a desirable position now, coming to 5 laps to go at the Daytona International Speedway and sitting 4th in line on the bottom. Gonna need, I think, some help from not only the cars behind him, but the cars in front of him as well. And that's going to be a tough challenge when you have guys like Wilhite, Shaughnessy, and Watson leading this field. Right now, Derek Whitford going to tag the outside wall just a little bit. They keep it going straight. Right now, Brad Ward and Levine on the inside trying to hold strong. But it's really been a reversal of roles here as now the inside lane is struggling.
Big move to the top side for Richard Elliott. Numbers working against him down low, so he goes up top. And is going to try and pull on past the guys that he was just following as the bottom line crumbles. Drivers from the top go down low, including Derek Whitford now leading the inside lane, along with help from Adrian Watts. You see the purple 0-2 on the top side. 4 laps to go at Daytona. Joshua Watson leads over Shaughnessy and Wilhite.
Down on the inside now. Can Watts and Whitford do anything as they go through turns 1 and 2? All over the back bumper of Whitford is Watts. Big push, just not going to be enough off of 2, I don't think. Here comes Watson and Shaughnessy once again on this outside. Big surge of momentum for this outside lane.
It might not be enough, but boy, Watts sure gave it a shot. Now Ward all over the 08 car trying to shove that Chevrolet up forward. Whitford's going to take the race lead, coming to 3 to go at Daytona. Derek Whitford, he's in by points. He'd like to take it by a win. He goes to the point. Now Watts takes over.
And Watts through turns 3 and 4, that was the best showcase of pushing we have seen all night. 197 through turns 3 and 4. Can they get it going once again? Not quite to the effect that they were doing. Here comes Whitford once again with help from earlier Daytona winner Brad Ward down on the inside. Still not going to be enough. Ward now, he's going to have his hand forced. He's down to the inside with help from Levine.
3 wide as the 87 jumped out of the throttle. Now the 02 is going to drop down to the middle side of the racetrack. Richard Elliott pulls up to Whitford. That was a mistake. They both go backwards. Whitford really got loosey-goosey there in turns 3 and 4. 2 laps to go. This is the scene for Elliott in 12th. He has to win this race. He's got to pick up 11 spots in 5 miles to make the championship playoffs.
Shaughnessy almost gets turned a little further ahead. Now they will get turned. Justin Levine down to the apron. No caution yet. Now the 87 is going to come back into the middle of the field.
Elliott's done. The playoffs have just been decided. Not yet officially, but they may as well be. Richard Elliott stayed in the throttle, had an opportunity. I can't necessarily blame him for staying a gas, but in a crash with 2 laps to go as we go into Shake and Bake Racing Buttkicker Cup Series overtime at Daytona. What the heck just happened to Caleb Hoffman?
And we'll get a replay here for you. It's a little further up the pack as they are going into turn number 2. It is one bad shove that causes all of this. You see the pack coming through the tri-oval here. And watch, keep your eye on Lawrence Shaughnessy. Going to be just a bad push right here from the 87. Gets them out of sorts. And then another shove right there. That gets that 87 and Brad Ward out of line. You see Ward comes back up in front of the track. And
wow.
Gets a lot of that pack. And Justin Levine did a great job as well. Down on the apron, saving that number 33 machine. But it's certainly a big shakeup to the end of this race.
Really big shakeup, that's for sure. Down into turn 1. Shaughnessy went down low, abandoned his teammate at Will Height. Got a big shot from Ward, who had the 33 of Levine pushing him. That got them all squirrely. Ward came back down. Levine kept pushing him. Ward comes up, gets Kleinschmidt, gets Jackson, gets Whitford, gets Babcock, gets Elliott. David Shively goes right on through, says, don't mind if I do. Misses another crash.
And either way, a big shakeup there. Going to set us up for an interesting turn of events.
It's right on board here with the 33 car, Levine. Kind of sparks this whole thing. Oh, he got a shove from behind. Did you see the car lurch? He got shoved into Brad Ward. That's what started all of this, and he's just trying to save it on the apron. Good catch.
And safe bet, just rolling through the corner there, watching all that unfold, and again sets us up very interestingly for a dash to the finish here. Going to go on board.
This will be Kleinschmidt that we're focused on. Watch him into turn 1. He's the one pushing Levine. Levine's going to get to Ward and get Ward to Shaughnessy. That gets Shaughnessy loose, but then a big shove from the 59. Yeah, they just stacked up down low, and that shoved Levine into it. And then blindsided was Kleinschmidt, and they just wadded up from there. I mean, wow. Big, big hits.
An interesting turn of events there for sure, but either way, that's putting us in an interesting spot. Adrian Watts, Joshua Watson, Lawrence Shaughnessy, they've been the top 3 for a while now. As you see, there is Richard Elliott, and his hopes practically gone up in smoke to bust some brackets here.
He's not technically done. I would consider him done, but he has a chance. I don't know. I hate it for him. He was involved in that crash pretty heavily. A lot of nose contact, and that's a lot of scary contact for him when he really needs to keep this car clean for this little dash to the end. If I was him, I think I would have backed out into the crash, but at the same time, how do you tell a race car driver, Caleb, to lift with 2 laps to go at Daytona, the biggest stage in racing?
And certainly not something that you want to do, but it is also definitely preferable to being involved in a wreck and having to deal with damage. And everything there. You see more cars. Kleinschmidt.
Whitford, each taking a lot of repairs, trying to get back in this race. Babcock as well. There's Daryl Whitford coming in now. He's a lap down. He's trying to come in and get some repairs made to the Bloom Mercantile, number 21. There's Jason Jackson, 2 laps down, just about out of this race. Brad Ward as well. Thankfully, Ward and Jackson both already in the playoffs. They don't have to sweat it. But our race leaders, meanwhile, Adrian Watts and Joshua Watson are teammates. That's row 1. Row 2 is now Shaughnessy and Wilhite, who are teammates. How does this work out?
Going to be interesting for sure in terms of, again, Shaughnessy and Wilhite have done so good working together today, and got to imagine that they have some plan up their sleeve here for the first of what could be 3 overtimes. Hopefully we're not going to have to use all of them, though. That
would be the hope. There are 3 available. Certainly don't want to have to use all 3. Here's Richard Elliott in the 0-2. Trying to catch up. Let's see how straight that wheel is. It actually looks a lot straighter than I would have expected. He's going to pull up and restart, it looks like, from the 8th position.
Who knows? He might have a shot here.
Oh, certainly. He's not out of it. I'll eat my words from before. He's definitely far from out of it. He can stay in this and still get the win, but I'd imagine that motor is going to be a little bit hurt. And we can actually try and find out. Telemetry, if he puts the clutch in at all, I don't know that he's going to at this point, but if he does put the clutch in, we can see the revs drop and kind of index where that damage might be at. I don't think he's going to put the clutch in, but it was worth a shot. Regardless, out front, to decide the regular season and decide our playoff grid, Adrian Watts, Joshua Watson into the Geico restart zone. One more shot to win on racing's biggest stage. Green flag, back in the air. We're back racing at Daytona.
And with just 2 laps to go here, look at Watts. He went up to work with Watson, and now Shaughnessy and Wilhite have had the seas parted for him. Now they're together down on the inside, side by side for the lead at Daytona as they come off turn 2. Here comes Barisi as well down on the inside.
The 66 had some indecision, but he eventually goes down with the drivers on the bottom side. That's Shaughnessy and Wilhite, aiding the high side motorsports team on the low side. Here comes some Grid Vision 1 sim drivers, Levine and South. It'll be white flag this time by Shaughnessy, checking up big time in the center of the corner. Here comes a run for the 08 and 01. 1 lap will go complete. 1 lap to go at Daytona and in the regular season. White flag is out, brought to you by Whiplash Sim Cams.
Here comes Levine. He was just involved in that last wreck. James South trying to get himself as well. He was disconnected from the session. He's trying to but now he's going to turn.
What a save!
Save it!
What a save from Levine. We're not done. 3 wide out of turn number 2. There they go. Big crash. 1 in the air. Richard Elliott is in it. He is not going to make the playoffs. The race for the win now is Joshua Watson, Adrian Watts, and here comes the 93 of Mashayevsky. He's going to go 3 wide. He's going to tap the 01. Where's he going to go out of turn number 2? Who knows? Mashayevsky trying to win at Daytona. Run to the checkers, and it's going to be Joshua Watson in the final race of the regular season, winning at Daytona International Speedway. How did Kleinschmidt stay in that group?
I don't know, but what a finish. What a run there to the checkered. They tried to wreck so many times, did wreck a few times, but Joshua Watson somehow navigates it all, wins it at Daytona.
And there you see Richard Elliott, whose hopes come to a close. He will not be racing with his teammates for a championship. JBR E-Racing, for all of their dominance here in 2023, only get 2 drivers into a race for the championship. And they've still got to go through... Oh! What are we doing? Mashayevsky comes up and hooks the 01. I don't know what that's for.
I think might have been a little assisted contact there.
Mashayevsky coming into the pit lane. Was it assisted for the 93 or assisted for the 01?
The 93, we'll get another look at it at some point
Shaughnessy
here. Right
pulls
here.
over in front of Mashayevsky down the backstretch. Do you think there was more to this?
Not sure. I think it might have just been a misjudgment from the 9, and
Yeah.
either way, now the 01 maybe down on contact, or down on power because of the contact rather, but gonna burn it down nonetheless.
Joshua Watson celebrating at Daytona International Speedway Racing's biggest stage, the world's center of racing. Whatever you call it, it's the site of the latest win for the 01 car. And what a dominant race it was for the opposite team. Watson simply had to play his cards right at the end, goes to victory lane this evening. Swell job done by JBR E-Racing. Did not expect this outcome for the last, 88 laps.
And what a run that was either way. And congratulations to Joshua Watson, who was the points leader coming into tonight. And I think caps it off well with a win at Daytona.
And he does. We'll take a look at our unofficial race results after 89 laps of racing. Just 10 laps led for Joshua Watson out front, who goes to victory lane. Brandon Mashayevsky, the most aggressive I've ever seen anybody at Daytona, I feel like. That was certainly some racing done by the 93 car. Comes home 1/1000th of a second over Adrian Watts. I thought Watts got him. That is surprising. Mashayevsky gets out of here with second place. Watts third. Shaughnessy fourth. Kleinschmidt there in the fifth spot. Top 5 for him. Derek Whitfield, a solid top 6. David Shively seventh. Richard Elliott does come home 8th, but it's not enough for the championship playoffs. Justin Levine, Nick Barisi round out your top 10.
A tough break for Chris Wilhite. He was running up front for so long. Today comes home in the 11th position. First car, 1 lap down, going to be Timothy Babcock. He comes home 12th. Darrell Whitford, 13th, 1 lap down as well. Jason Jackson retired in that race, 5 laps down for him. Brad Ward as well. Brian Traeger, 16th, for him. Luke Duran, 17th. Austin Derbyshire, 18th. James South in the 19th position. And running out your top 20 tonight, Brian Watson. Then you see Spencer Clark, Andrew Griesbaum rounding out the field, 21st and 22nd, respectively.
It's all Joshua Watson when it's all said and done. Going to victory lane once again is car number 01. And this time, Joshua, you know what? I guess I said it enough times, the regular season, Daytona winner, this and that for the 01. You make me no longer a liar. You make me a truther, I suppose. You are Daytona winner this season, winning the second race at Daytona. How did that one go for you behind the wheel?
That was crazy and hectic coming to the end. Was just kind of going to stay glued to my teammate there, Adrian, and when that whole debacle happened, somebody got loose on the inside. Obviously, everybody's trying to side draft at that point and hold him back, and I don't know if somebody got in the back of, I think it was Justin, he got loose. Then to try to not wreck my teammate, jumped up high and just kind of got to the outside of him, and then at that point, when I looked back, I seen I had a good lead and was kind of nervous and just trying to figure out at that point which line do you try to block to stay up front. And I figured, if anything, go to the high line because I seen my teammate was low and try to get one of us to win, and it worked out.
Well, the big storyline all night long was actually about one of your teammates, Richard Elliott, trying to get him in the playoffs. It was a big story going all the way back this summer to Atlanta and beyond, all the way through Michigan. We were talking about it a bunch these last couple of races that we've covered. Unfortunately, though, he's out. Is there anything else you guys think you could have done? I mean, what was the situation, I guess, like for the team coming to that last restart?
I mean, we were trying. They had that little bobble at the beginning there, but we were all able to recover from it. And then just a few guys driving over their heads tonight kind of caused them to get caught up in accidents, unfortunately. I mean, we had one teammate get side drafted into the wall and completely end his night. And then I think later on another wreck that got caught up in, but it sucks because I think we had a good chance to really get one of them in tonight, and it didn't work out, and kind of just went to plan B and try to get our team in victory lane there, and we were able to, and had a good run with me and Adrian, and Plan is, even though we didn't get them in victory lane tonight, and they may not be in the playoffs, we're still going to try to get them a victory before the end of the season, along with hopefully getting me and Adrian in the championship 4.
And you guys have been two of the best. I think the top 4 in this picture in the replay, probably the best 4 drivers in the series. So when you're this close with Shaughnessy and Wilhite all season long and in this race, how do you bring the fight to them now in the first round of the playoffs? Some interesting racetracks, 16 of you in this first round. It's a lot of drivers. A lot could possibly go wrong to take you out of it. How do you get through this first round?
I think for me, just trying to cruise through it, I feel like we got a pretty good gap with the playoff points to where I feel like we're pretty comfortable. We can go in and try a few things, not get too crazy, but at least a little bit of the stress is off with the playoff points there. So next is just trying to make sure we keep Captain in there, or Adrian, we call him. Keep him in there and keep him up there. And these are all good tracks for him coming up, so it's just going to take a lot of teamwork and getting them up there, and I think we'll be set. The first round, with the way we are, it shouldn't be too stressful. It's going to be the next couple rounds after that that'll be the stress round. So hopefully we can get him a few more wins and a few more playoff points to make it a little easier on him to transfer to each round.
There you go, Joshua Watson, a race win this evening. Thinking about the team and the playoff picture as a whole, congratulations, Joshua. A big win for you, going to help you out in these playoffs. Even more bonus points added to your total going into the first round. Should be not a breeze, but at least a little bit more safe feeling for the 01 car. Congrats one more time. Hopefully we're talking to you in a couple of weeks at Bristol.
Yep, thank you.
And Caleb, it was anything but simple of a race for the 93 car. Brandon Maciejewski, through all of that chaos in the last restart, comes home in the second spot. Caleb, this is an interesting one.
And now with Brandon and that 93 car, you were coming, it was, ninth coming to the white flag. Talk us through that final lap where you were able to work your way up to second position here tonight.
Man, I have no idea. All I know is I had my foot in it and I wasn't lifting. Everybody started scattering. I just tried to find a hole and stick it in there.
And coming into tonight, you were sixth in the point standings, and a second place certainly going to help you going into the first round. How are you feeling about your chances of the round of 16?
We got a long road ahead of us. Definitely going to be an uphill battle. We got a lot of fast guys in the playoffs, a lot of fast cars that we're going to have to try and beat out there. But we're going to give it all we got and see what we can come up with.
And, looking through just short of a win there, but you have won so far this season. You were locked in coming into tonight. A good run for this 93 machine for sure. And again, going to Bristol next week. Going to be a fun one to watch you and watch everybody else with you.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a good show. I know that we're going to have a lot of tight racing and probably going to come back with a race car without the sides on it, but we're going to do what we can and try and put it in victory lane. We've been really good at the short tracks this year, so why not add another one?
Well, that is Brendan Maciejewski, and certainly very confident going into a short track he describes as one of his strengths. Congratulations. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and again, congratulations on a second place finish here tonight.
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate you guys coming on for the broadcast. It's really awesome. Keep up the good work.
That is the driver of the 93. We'll go back to you, Andrew. You're with Adrian Watts, third place finisher.
Third place finisher for sure. Teammate to the race winner. A lot was going right for you guys early in the race, Adrian, as a team. Then it got a little bit bumpy in the mid-race. How did you guys focus back and get in the right spot there for the end?
I just guess put our heads down. Still the whole time worried about trying to get Richard up there, but I pushed I think Whitford there for a little while, and I jumped up in front of Josh when the caution came out, and didn't know how I got up there myself, but was happy.
Well, it certainly works out for you. I mean, it's going to be a bumpy road still through these playoffs, but how do you go into this first round? Tracks like, I think, Darlington, Kansas, Bristol. How do you attack these first few races of these playoffs and try to get yourself and your teammate a win?
Not too worried about Josh. He can win everywhere. Darlington's probably one of his favorite tracks, and I really like Kansas. So I think we got a big shot, but I think I'm going to put the hammer down and be a little more aggressive and make sure I'm there at the end.
And, you know, we talked a little bit with Josh about this first round of 16. A lot of cars with a great chance to win this title, kicking things off in this first round. Of course, you guys have a pretty good setup. Joshua has a bunch of points coming into the playoffs. You're going to have a good handful as well. And I think you won at Kansas earlier this season, if I remember correctly, a race that we covered. So do you have any worries about this first round, or is it kind of smooth sailing?
You know, everybody that's in the playoffs, they're capable of winning, and you know, I know we got some playoff points, but this is time to, you know, like I said, we're gonna put our feet down, and just, you know, show the dominance from the beginning.
There you go, Adrian Watts, confident heading into the playoffs here. Car number 08, third place this evening, looking to get a couple extra spots going to Darlington next week. Adrian, good talking to you as always.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Adrian Watts, a solid third place finish this evening to his teammate Watson out front. Mashayevsky there in second. Let's go back and take a look as to how we got here on that last restart. It was certainly a tumultuous restart in more ways than one, Caleb. I mean, a lot went right, a lot went wrong. Let's try and watch this and diagnose it.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll see it's Watts and Watson. They've been together. It really interesting here. You know, you would think that maybe Watson and Watts have something to get coordinated down to the inside, but it was really not very well coordinated for those two. And you see Will Height was able to get down to the inside with Shaughnessy here. The only problem with it is it leaves both of them without help at this point. And then you have that number 66 coming to help in behind him.
It gave up the early advantage, but I think made the whole field a little more wide open. But I don't see a problem with taking the outside. I think that's better to defend and try to run to the finish out of turn 4. But I think you're right. It opened up Pandora's box on the first lap, which usually if you start on the bottom and get clean out on the bottom through 1 and 2, it's a calmer first lap. It wasn't this way for these guys.
Yeah, not only that, but it sets up, like you said, a good way to describe it, Pandora's box, where you have so many variables that you open the door to. Because look at the 33 here. He was able to get down to the inside, Justin Levine, and then he has help from the lap car of James South as well. And once these two get together, all hell really breaks loose right here. Somehow Levine saves it. And at this point, Watson decides he wants to go off on his own as they wreck down the backstretch.
Oh. Big hit there for Will Height and Levine. Elliott nowhere to go. And that's really where the biggest domino falls this evening. Richard Elliott involved in this crash. Let's watch it back from his perspective and see how he gets involved here on the final lap. He was lights out, full throttle the previous crash. Just trying to get to the end. Big move to the outside, and oh, how that one backfired.
Just a tough break for that O2 machine. He was hoping to upset the bracket here tonight and just was not able to. And Watson with a fantastic run to the checkered there to come home with the win. And you'll see it right here. Still not sure how the 33 saved it right here.
Maybe the best piece of driving I've ever seen in the next-gen car. That's insane. And that's all happening at 190 miles per hour. Then he gets turned, which is not so great, but that first save is simply amazing driving from Justin Levine.
Absolutely, and tough break for him, and that it didn't work out, but happens at Daytona.
Let's watch this back one more time. Starts to get loose right about here. Sideways, straight to the right lock. I mean, wow. I don't understand that one.
And that's just Austin South all over the vine there.
Here from the onboard. Watch it first here at real speed. Gonna get hooked briefly from the 21 car. It looks so calm, honestly. It looked way more calm inside the car than outside. Unbelievable. And then up in the air there, I mean, how the turns table.
Yeah, I mean, it'll change in an instant for you, and just like that, Ryan found himself out of it. And really opened up the door, I think, for Watson and his run to the finish, because it took out a lot of key pieces. Guys like Lawrence Shaughnessy who had to get regrouped there and just couldn't.
Back inside the helmet. It just corrected itself for the most part. He had to make a couple of corrections behind the wheel, but what a catch by Justin Levine. It almost worked out. What goes wrong for him then from here? Got moved up 3 wide, and Watts just got hooked down, I think, and that triggers a whole massive crash. It's interesting that that's what triggers the crash coming to the checkers. Teammates try to push each other, and that takes their own teammate, Richard Elliott, out of it. Oh, man. Every action at Daytona has a much larger reaction. I think Newton's laws are a little bit modified when you come to a place like this, and certainly that was on display at the end of the race.
Absolutely, and what a crazy end to the regular season, as you see the schedule graphic popping up there as we now head into the playoffs. And I think it delivered for sure. I mean, we just had beating and banging all night. Just incredible racing here from the high banks of Daytona.
It was definitely a tumultuous win. And I'm just looking through driver chat in the league Discord. And, oh boy. There are definitely some angry drivers in some cases, some drivers who are shrugging it off and taking their result, that's for sure. But here's a look at the schedule. Darlington next up for these drivers. We will be back with them in coverage at Bristol for race 29. I'm going to check on our schedule. That will be, let's see, September 29th. We'll be back with these guys. September 29th, I think. No, hang on. I'm looking at October. I'm sorry. September 24th. No, 17th. I'll get the date right one of these times. September 17th. There we go. We'll be at Bristol with these guys for the first elimination race of the playoffs. Elimination there for round number 1. Then we come back for the Roval at round 32. Then Martinsville at round 35. And finally, Phoenix for the finale. A lot of great racing still to come. Let's take a look here at our upcoming broadcast of Pit Stop TV. A lot going on this week, Caleb. The big thing is there's no UFL Elite Series racing this week. We've got an extra week before we go back racing at Chicagoland. These next 2 broadcasts with late model stock cars are both a couple of last races for their seasons. It's week 12 for Elite Performance Industries Short Track Mondays at Five Flag Speedway tomorrow evening, August 28th. Then Tuesday, it's the All-Star Race for the D-Line Racing League, brought to you by Elevated Performance as they head out to Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. A full week and a day off of broadcasting here at Pit Stop TV. Then we come firing back in week 13 at Chicagoland with the NASCAR Cup Series Gen 4 cars. And Caleb, that's going to be a doozy. Round 5. 1 repeat winner so far, and that is, I got to think here, the 41 car Brian Mercurio. A winner this last time out. I got to think about who won at Pocono. It made sense, but now I can't think of it. Hang on. I know Ryan Vargas won at Daytona. Who the heck won at Pocono? Oh man, I'm completely lost. Wow. I need to go back and watch that race apparently. Regardless, I'm going to check this.
Corey
Hine, thank you. See, I knew it was somebody who made complete sense as he went into the playoffs this season, or this afternoon actually, in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. So yeah, Corey Heim winning at Pocono this past week. They have an extra week to prep for Chicagoland Speedway. Thanks for the quick work there. That saved me a little bit, but a lot of great racing coming up these next 2 broadcasts of Pit Stop TV, even if we have a week off ahead. That's going to be nice, I will say. A nice little break, a chance to catch our breaths, but still, a lot of great racing left to go these next 2 days.
Absolutely, and lots to look forward to here on Pit Stop TV for sure, and good follow-up to, like you just said, a very tumultuous one here tonight. Only 3 cautions, but we had some big incidents here at Daytona.
It's interesting you mentioned 3 cautions. I hadn't thought about the race info just yet. 3 cautions for 9 laps, 29 lead changes. Definitely a crazy night out front of the field this evening at Daytona International Speedway. Thanks again to everyone having us here. Really is appreciated for Buttkicker to put in such great support to the Shake and Bake Racing Buttkicker Cup Series and make this league what it is. A big thank you to our partners here at the channel, Whiplash Media, SimCams, ATVO, and CC's Business. And a big shout out to those making it happen for us behind the scenes. Of course, Caleb, thanks for being here this evening. It was certainly a help having you along for the ride. And a big shout out to the groups behind these broadcasts for sure. In audio, ATVO, Whiplash Media, SimCams, OBS, and iRacing.com. Enjoy this beautiful overhead view of Daytona International Speedway as we say good night. We'll see you next time.